Yes, and we're on. So we had a discussion, Dennis, that you have been working with this a new strategy for HTML templating of controls to get yet another way to get access to how we render stuff.
Kind of, yeah. We can call it like that, yes.
And we said that it would be good if you can just walk us through where we are in that implementation as to date, and then we can have a discussion about the the effects that we can expect from having this, or etc. So I'll leave the screen to you.
Yes, I hope it won't be boring for everyone. And so it will be some very boring thing about front end and how the web works. Yeah, so I will start presenting my screen.
I can just upsell a bit here. So it's about providing a path to, for example, Angular instead of AngularJS. And it also provides hopefully a path to more specific styling of built-in components.
And I will mention it. Yeah, don't worry about it.
Because you said if it's boring, then I have to upsell.
Yeah. So yeah, I would try to start from the basics, what we have right now, what is the like default solution for us right now, why we've decided to start changing our implementation, how we render and work in the browser, and as a spoiler about that the main goal will be in the future, of course, to migrate to the new version of Angular. But for now, we need to cope with the source code we have. So like everyone knows, I hope here that we have different layers of our ecosystem, and we call it like mostly like just modernity and fashion. So today we will be more concentrated in modernity. So I don't know if anyone, like except of course Hans and Lars, familiar with how we render our page based on the model and view model you've created in the MDriven Designer. And like usually how it happens right now, we use C# on the Turnkey server that understands your view model and render and send to the browser like the HTML that was created on the server with the data needed for Angular in the browser to data bind all your controls to your data that we've got also in the same time from the database and put it into the client browser. But like this is a good way to do things, but we felt pretty fixed and not flexible with this implementation in the matter of what we can do and how we can improve UI and user experience of Turnkey application for our end user, for like developers, and also for the customers who use the application based on the Turnkey. And we use like right now, if you don't know, like the main technology we use to in the browser for Turnkey is AngularJS, and it's pretty old JavaScript framework that unfortunately was stopped to be supported 1 year ago. So it won't receive any security fixes, any patches in the future. So it's good time to think about like what our direction in the future and where we move. And like there is a lot of plenty of UI libraries, UI frameworks in the web, and it's like a pretty massive world to live in if you're a front-end developer. And we will stick with a new version of Angular, but At the same time, if we want to migrate in the future, we need to adapt our code base, because we're always trying to let our customers and developers get rid of the pain thinking about modernity and make the transition, like with your application, when you update the version of the Turnkey server, really easy without any problem. So it's why we started to slightly rework in our source code base to trying to fit to the new requirements from the new frameworks. And also it, like everything right now, is component based, and back in the years ago, like AngularJS wasn't component based, but before they died with the support of Angular, they introduced the component based structure for AngularJS to let developers to adapt for the new versions that we are using right now everywhere. So, and the main thing and the main change is in the source code of the Turnkey application, as I described before, when we render the HTML on the server and send it to the browser, we just render each control with a C#. But with the new structure, what we are able to do, we are able to send just a small HTML snippets that will tell Angular which template use in the client's browser and pick from the server and present it as a control in your application. So basically, I will show some source code, so I'm sorry for that. It's not pretty as usually, but it's slightly changed, like the way how we structure our code and how it looks inside. So I don't know really, do I need to explain like this more, but like AngularJS also use the same way to do with the model view controllers. So we have controllers in AngularJS. We have views that actually your page, and model is, in our case, it's a scope. So it's data that we fetch from the Turnkey server and apply it to Angular in the browser. So the main goal was to add component-based structure into Turnkey application. So you can see, can you see my screen? Is it like too big or too small, or it's a blurry?
It's a little bit small, maybe.
That's a good question. I will try to make it bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, that's better. The outgoing video seems limited to 720p, so even if your screen is higher resolution, it gets downsampled, but that's readable.
I hope it will be good right now. Yeah, so you can see like in our source code that now we have a lot of components that actually just part of UI you finally see in the browser when you upload the model to the MDriven server. Just go to the link where you placed your Turnkey application. So right now, from the front-end part, like in the browser, everything is divided to the components. And you can say that it's like pointless to do, but it allows us to use like the basic Angular template engine that was used before, and it gives you an ability to change the presentation of UI controls app-wide, because each time when Angular sees in the page, in the HTML that we send from the server, is some indication that this should be some type of the controller, it goes to the server back and asks for the templates. And all these templates will be uploaded to the GitHub, I think, and also to the wiki to be able like to allow them to download and tweak by yourself and upload it with a model. So it will be used in the same way as we do right now with the custom styles, with the DK user CSS and all other things that we can upload alongside with the model as external components and all our like other things. So, and you can see that right now it's available for everyone to tweak, change, or even replace, or even do much crazier thing. If you want, for example, if you're familiar that like React framework. It's not a framework, actually. It's like UI library. You can even use it with turnkey application if you tweak deep enough the template and include the React script into the turnkey app. You're able to use React on top of AngularJS, but it's just a crazy thing. So you can see that it's like pretty, I would say, simple. So how it works, we send the HTML from the server that tells what to render. And actually, in the most of the time, I will switch to the browser right now. It's like some sample model. And this page is created by these components, new component structure of AngularJS. And if you go to the network tab, we actually can have a look what we send from the browser, from the server to the browser when we request the page. Let's open it, not even like that. Yeah, so you can see right now that it sends...
Dennis, can you zoom that a bit?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Thank
Now it's
you.
better?
Yes.
So you can see that right now what we send from the server, it's much less information, much less HTML, and we just send the directive for Angular what to pick in the template, which component to pick, and all other things move to the HTML templates that I just showed you before. So it's pretty much smaller structure. Okay, I need to expand it more. It's like inline. Can I prettify it here? No, just a sec. And it will be much visible here. It's like the pricing container structure. Should I zoom in again?
Yes.
Please make it bigger. Yes. So you can see here, like, it's some part of our basic layout that we received from the server. So it's a placing container that places your elements as you designed it in the view model editor. And then it sends just a small HTML snippet. Then in this case, this TK text field, it means that Angular should pick the TK text field component from our library. And actually it end up as this text field here you can see. But all this, like, for example, these borders, the actual HTML element, input element, all of this, it's not right now C#, there is no any connection to the C# because it's all lives here in the templates, and you can see that right now, for example, the template for text field component looks like that. So it has a label, it has like input, it has helper text and validation errors, and also placeholders in case you added it from in your view model. And there is the description on the wiki how you can add a helper text, or how you can add a placeholder, how to make them static, or how to make them dynamic. So you can all find this on the wiki. But the main thing is that you're able right now to impact how we render components through the system. For example, if you know that you don't want to have, for example, this basic thing, or you want to add something on app-wide level to your component, you can add some element here. For example, we can, for some reason, maybe you want to have everywhere some label text after your actual label or company name. I mean, it's just like very dummy case, but just to show how it works, you're free to. So you just change your template, upload it with a model. I won't do that right now just to save our time. It's like because I have access to the actual turnkey app that is running, and reload the page without restarting the server, and you can see that everywhere the label is applied because it picks the new template it sees that it's changed and it will be shown everywhere in your application. You can think about it like if you don't want like our button presentation, you want to change it everywhere, and you don't want to change it like in each view model, for example, or you can freely do it right now with a template. So it's one of advantage that we like achieved when we switched to the component based, because before it was impossible to do that with a turnkey, because everything that you see here was constructed by a server with a C#, and it was pretty messy. I would say it was also some like uh, uh, some reasons why we were slow in the changes of the UI, because you can imagine if you have the full page with a lot of controls, how much code you need to support just with this string creation on the server. But of course, it's like our headache, it's not yours headache, but we're also trying to improve this part and be more flexible in the changes from like and requests from our customer.
So this is a way to share the headache.
It's not a way to share. It's like we trying to minimize our headache and also give the new ability for the customer and developers to tweak the presentation of the components in the easiest possible way that we can provide right now. Also, like
Wasn't one also of the thing that this maybe opens up is accessibility for visually impaired, for example. You can
yes.
add a lot of extra things if you so require in your use case.
Yeah, it's mostly you're required to do accessibility thing and fit into some accessibility criteria when you're working with some governmental projects or universities. Yeah, and it also opened for us like easier way to handle it, and with all this like redoing of each UI control we have in the system, we think also about accessibility and some of the levels that we can provide by the default. But I would say that text field maybe example is not good enough to like see the power of template in the Angular and how it's easy to change here. Also, like we're trying to do each part as a template. So sidebar with a new implementation, the left side menu is also like a template. And you also are able to change it, and it's much like complex component because it consists like you can see even here like the main one and also the child components as a group and action. But right now we also give the very easy way to tweak your sidebar if you want to change how it looks, how it works. Even you're able to do that with a template. But I've missed one detail that I need to say here. Let's go back what we sent from the server. You can see that we send the HTML element that points Angular which component it is. And also we send the basic rules that we just know on the server level where to data bind this controller in our scope to so bind the UI with this data we have in the browser and the data we have like in the application. And it means that it sends like that for the text field, it sends the attributes that is a text. It's not a number, it's not something else, so it should be a text. We send like this, it's actual binding to the data in the scope. We also send the rules that you can tweak and set in the view model editor as a read-only expression, show expression, and class expressions. All of that we send from the server, but it means that the documentation is always not ready for this part, but here all the data is available, so it will be well documented, I promise you, and you will be able to use it, so you will be able to know which data is available for this component, and so you will be free to just delete the whole template, create your own template and put the data bindings where you want. So you can bind, for example, the label. You can make a label in an SVG image and bind it through the controller and label to show the label on SVG image or any other item you want to put. So it's one of the main things. So we provide the basic rule for Angular what to render, which template to pick, and with the basic like default set of the data that allows you to work with the data on the template level. Is it like understandable? So boring? Do I need to move to some fun?
I think it's understandable. So the different components, you can sort of choose just one, like the text field, and include that in assets TK in the correct place to
Yes.
to inject that one, and all the other ones will be left alone.
Not like on all of the other ones. So the text field is the component that is highly reusable, always in the system, because it works just for all the inputs, like the same way. And probably from the UI perspective, there is no difference most of the time between the numbers, or it's like a string input in the browser, because it's all will be sent as a string to the server, and it just some like live quality experience from browser when you see these buttons. When it's in like number input, you can just click and add +1 just it's just like this thing is important. So if you change the template for text field, it will be reused for the whole app for each input. But it's like, inputs, you don't want actually change inputs all the time. But if it comes, for example, to file uploads, because the next thing that I want to show some improvements of the components we have right now, and the new structure of the Angular application for turnkey allows us to do more with, like, from the side of user experience. And I will show you it right now with a file upload, because like file uploads, like, it sounds like a pretty easy thing to do, just a button that open up the default browser file picker, you pick file and it's uploaded. But we're trying to provide like the best possible user experience by the default, and we've struggled a lot how to say that your file is currently uploading. It's not finished yet, that you can understand that you don't need to leave the page. Or where to put, for example, because we have an ability in the view model editor to add additional field to store the file name. But we also need to present it when you upload the file. And it works somehow right now, but we're also thinking about how to improve it. And I will show, like, because right now every component with a new structure has its own controller and its own states, and we can manage it and work with that and provide more like user experience improvements to the application. So for example, how it's changed right now, if you upload the file with a new file upload, and I probably need to slow down my internet connection here just to show you, and maybe zoom in. Yeah. So I've picked the file. It's 30 megabytes, I think. Yeah. So we upload, and right now we're showing. Oh, it will be too slow. Okay, my bad. We don't want to see it here so long. I will do that again, just to show. So I hope you catch it.
Yeah.
That right now we insert into the button to not like shift your layout, to make it predictable when you develop your pages, that this progress of the uploading of the file will be shown inside the button. The name will be shown with the help of other new components that we have right now in the system. It's like some kind of a notification, like messages that will pop up sometimes in your application. So you can see that file was uploaded, you see that the state is changed to the green, you see the file name here, and we had some thoughts about where to put the file name, because for now we have it under the button, but it's not so evident for user what's going on. But I hope you will like this way of showing the uploaded file name. It's pretty understandable that this file was uploaded. You can close this notification, and if you save, like we show that it's saved, and also we clear the status of the button, so you can now see from the user experience perspective that you are free to upload the new file if you want. But of course you can say that the one we have uploaded file, but where it is, but it's like it's not a work for upload component, it's work for just present your blob that you uploaded in the different UI control. So it's also important to keep in mind that like one thing couldn't fit into the all requirements that need to be on the like page for specific purposes. Yeah, so it's like demonstration of one thing that also allows us, after switching to the component base, to do more thing from the user perspective, such this like progress, showing the progress of the upload, showing the new notification thing at the bottom of the screen. Another one, pretty fresh one, also fully component based, it's like showing of constraints that we can set for the classes in the MDriven designer, and I will show you for now. So I need to clear this. Yeah, I need to clear this event, go back, and you can see here that before it we had in the sidebar, we have the pretty ugly list of different colors based on the level of your constraint messages you set in the MDriven designer. And we have like three basic categories, like warnings, errors, and information messages. And for now, like also when we were working to the controller, we decided to make the new one, and we believe that it's much better way to present constraints in the app. So if you have something wrong, if some of the class violated your constraint rules, it will pop up here, like the message about the issues you have, and just a direction for user that you need to click to see details. If you click, it will pop up the other window with the messages inside it. They will be divided by category, and they will be scrollable, so you will see all of them without a chance to miss something. But also it allows us to move like this component, move it to see it in the model windows, because sometimes when you have the table of the elements and you, for example, if we imagine that we have 20 empty events in this table, we will have 20 issues here. But when you move to the context of the one model window that in this case represent editing just one event, we just need to switch the context and show the issues that are related to the current event. So we also add like the button, the same one almost without additional text, just to save the space to the model windows. So, and if you click onto this, it will also pop up here as a constraint messages for this model window and the data you have inside it. And it also like kind of smart if it will understand how much space is available, like under the model window or from the left side, to place it inside your viewport and prevent expanding your page or be out of this like your view. So it's like, yeah, but the other interesting thing that TeamPlace allows us to do, if we go here, we have under the templates folder, we have other folder called panels. And for example, for this window, like this one, we have also like the template here. And you're also free to change it if you want to have different look of the constraint messages in your application based on the styles of your clients, or for any other reason, you're able to change it here. And the other, like, maybe very, I wouldn't say like the powerful, but useful thing that we also can do with the template, we can add some rules to switch between singular and plural forms of the words you're using in your presentation. And so you can see here, for example, we have one issue, we say issue, we have more, we say issues. So it also allows us, I think, like for now, to use the templates and all the thing as a part also as a translation. Maybe, I don't know what, Hans, do you think about that? Because we have an ability to model it, but we didn't have ability to access the default thing in the turnkey to translate it into another language. And I saw we actually even tested it in our 1 hour project with this new notification about constraint messages to translate it into the Swedish, and it worked like good. I mean, it finally shows it in Swedish instead of English when you have the whole application in Swedish, just like as an example. So yeah, so it's also, everything is available here. You can see that we use also some other components. So it shows the icons that we by the default using the turnkey as material icons from the Google. So if you want, you can place any other icon, just typing the name of the icon between like TK icon tag. So it's pretty flexible. You can play with it, work with it, change it, whatever you want to have a look of that. It's like for validation card, it like follows the same. So it's like have this one that you can also change the text, like this text, based on how many issues you have. You can be more flexible in some part of the turnkey app that weren't like, it was really hard to access them before. It wasn't impossible, but it was really, really hard. Yeah, so it's like some basic overview. I don't know, maybe you want to know some more details. Maybe you want to have a look into the source code of components, how it's structured from the code side. Maybe you have some questions or ideas, for example, what we can do with that, or what you want to see in the application.
So I was thinking of one idea when I see this is that whenever we use constant wording like issues, etc., we do that at several places in the application, and we don't really think much about it, like log in or log out or save and things like that. Maybe we should, whenever we feel the need for using one, have it as a constant, as a named constant, and those constants should be, we should be able to stream those from the server from a class of a specific name, and if it was a class, we could have derivations within the class to actually override it as we see fit, or just leave it as the default for the quick implementation. So
yeah, it's like also I was thinking about that, and like what you see right now, like it's made like specifically for the turnkey, and with the thinking about how to because this thing also, I have to mention it, is available if you use the tagged value. You can use the tagged value for your view, to enable this way of rendering. So it's already in like the latest version of the Turnkey application, and if you want to try it, you can just add the tag value and see how it looks on your pages. It's not like not all of the components are done right now. Some of the very advanced and complex ones that includes a lot of like other components and states, such as like data tables, they are not like well tested and ready for production, but you can also see them if under this tag value. And also there is a setting with the same name like app wide. If you use it in the side turnkey settings XML file, it will turn the whole application to use it like the new rendering. And why I'm telling that yes, I was thinking about, and you can see some classes that are here, and it's more like maybe it's much better to show it like here, some basic classes that we use. And like also one of the goal was to make the new components look exactly the same as the old ones, trying to not like scary anyone who are using right now Turnkey, that for example if you turn on this setting it will be completely new application with a different look and different UI. But also I was thinking, well, how to implement the possibility to send some settings as we do, for example, for Turnkey server with the Turnkey settings XML, to have something similar for the browser implementation, the Turnkey for AngularJS, to send the data that we can use. For example, if you have predefined styles and CSS system from your customer as you as a developer, and you have like CSS rules that already written, and you just need to tweak CSS classes instead of doing it every view model in the style ref or any other way. You can tweak it like just with a small JSON file will be stored next to the Turnkey application, or will be sent from the server if we will be able to configure it inside MDriven Designer. And yes, and the same thing that we are using, for example, the locale files based on the language and region of your like computer and browser. We're trying to change the presentation of dates and other things in the inputs. We can also try to generate this data from the like maybe designer or Turnkey server and send it alongside with all other data and use it inside application. So basically all this like basic translation for login, logout, for like issues and something that we are pretty sure that 100% will be in our application, we can like make it dynamically with a model with a dynamic translation. So I don't see any like stopping point that like prevent us of doing that.
So I have a question, Dennis. So these are all the things that do work. Can you just give us some, not super long, where are we with the tricky ones like tables, and what is that struggle there? Because I think that also gives insight to others included.
Yeah.
What is difficult?
Yeah, like with the tables, like as I described in the beginning of my boring speech, the tables right now still mostly rendered by C#, because we don't send to the client so much data to understand what we need to put into the table. Because okay, let me maybe show the source code for the tables. I will make it bigger, don't worry, I just need to find it first of all.
So Dennis, let me just ask you, so you have come towards this table thing from two, right? One thing is to make an HTML, is it called table? And the other thing is to just like iterate rows. So yeah, Where are you with that?
What we do right now, we send the basic structure of the table from the C#, and we also send the rule for Angular how to iterate through our objects for table that we pick from our scope in the browser. I can show you how it looks like from the browser perspective and what data we have to iterate through. So I'm accessing right now the Angular scope, but not the correct one. I think, yeah, just a sec. Okay, it's strange here. Let me pick the correct element. Okay. So actually, right now you see the data, the scope that actually is a data binding rules, like rules for Angular. And so our tables from the data perspective in the Angular backside looks like the array of the objects, and one object represents one row. And the problem is in the current implementation that we don't have enough information about which type of data it is on the client to be able to render it fully with this templates that I showed you before. So it's why we need to construct it on the server with the C# as send just let me show you also.
I guess part of the problem is to render one grid row. You need to know about the grid columns and all the definition that has gone into the column definition.
Yes, and you can see that I will just quickly show you. It's like that this table is an old implementation. And you can see that we send the t-body, like the basic HTML tag that you use for tables, and then we send the rules how to iterate through the array in the scope and present it. But what we do actually, we send this rule and inside this tag, and inside this tag we create by C# the template for each cell, because only in the right now on the Turnkey server we know which control should be in it, in this cell. So it's like some kind of mixing. So if you try to, for example, I don't want to scare you, but I can do that right now. If we switch this page that we see with event list to use, to use with AngularJS components, I hope it won't be so scary. And upload the model. And reload the page. Yeah, it looks slightly different. Is it visible? You see there is not enough information here. Let's add just to see clearly some description. Yeah, also it's some new control to choose the date. Just click return one, and let's go back to the event list. Yeah, so here it's still, if we compare two implementations, new with the old one, same way, we can see that we still so we send the TK
you
table.
need to zoom that a bit.
Okay, yeah. So it's TK table. It's not a regular table component from thing from the HTML. It's inside here, and there is some tricks that you can do with the components. If you go to the table here, you can see that it has a label. It has a button that in the future will be the context action that you will be able to call with the 3 dots button next to your table title, and it will show the action related to this table. But then you can see that the other like tag here, it's like table container, and it has this strange directive like attribute that says transclude, and it means that it allows us to put something like inside of the TK table here to be rendered inside like here. So actually the table like ends up inside of this table container. And this one we create on on the C#, and this, you see that all these things is all created by the C# the same way as we did it like with the old implementation. So if we, for example, it's a new one, if we move to the old one, it's almost the same. And the one reason for that is we don't have enough data in the scope in the browser to really create the like these layouts and know which control we need to trigger and to present. Yeah, so it's like the basic, the reason why like table are complex and not finished yet, because we're trying to find the best solution to tackle these issues.
Yeah,
and problems.
and the table is overloaded with functionality. You can have all the other controls within the table, and then you can go if it should be editable or not, and then you have all the edit versions of the controls as well.
Yes, yeah, it's true. I mean, I made this mistake too when I started to redoing the table. I thought that table, it's not a hard thing to do, but when you add on top all the functionality like the end user expect to have in the table, starting from just changing vcurrent, that is pretty simple, ending up with a context menu, selecting multiple rows, selecting it with some shortcuts when you hold the shift button on your keyboard and you choose how many rows you want to select. It becomes very complex thing, and it holds a lot of states, like internal states for each row, for the component in each cell, and all other things. So it's, yeah, it's moving, but not so fast as we wanted it to move. Yeah, but maybe there will be some improvements from data set we send from the server to the client in the browser that allows us to use more and more Angular instead of C# and make the table also like very flexible for the developer and users to tweak and change without touching the C# code, for example.
One thing that I wonder when I see this is there like, does everything need to go into one template? Or is it like, yeah, there should be like a template for simple tables and another table for secret tables with a lot of other things in it? Or
it could be done like that also, but it's like it doesn't solve the problems we have right now with the data available.
No, I guess so. I was just thinking if it's sometimes it gets too complicated if you try to cram everything into one solution.
Of course, when you're trying to do component-based structure, you always want to have like stateless component. And
Dennis, and they have issues with the internet.
you don't
No,
hear us?
you just froze a bit, but you're back.
Yes, sorry. And it's like surprising that it just happened once. Yeah, when you move to the like component-based structure of the application, you always want to have stateless component and move out of the component as much as possible with logic and state up in the hierarchy of the component tree of your application. But with the tables, it's the thing that ideally the parent component for the table that you can see here as a TK table should handle all the states and logic for the table, and all other, like the child components, should be stateless and just present the data. But we don't have this ability because like we really we don't have enough data really. Okay, it's not a data really, it's like a metadata, like some additional metadata about the table that we don't have on the client, and it's one thing that's stopping me for fully replace like table implementation, and it makes some like pain points, let's say it like that.
But in a while, we will, sure, solve the problem of having more metadata available, and then you see a way forward at least.
Yeah. Some of this, like also maybe it will be interesting. I'm trying to also provide and make some kind of like, let's call it an API. If you develop your own components, or if you make in the view overrides to provide an easy and well-documented way, like the function that you can execute with a turnkey app. For example, if you want to trigger something, or if you want to receive based on your custom external components, how you want to if you want to receive the notification that something happens like the same way as this with your text. Yeah, we're also making it available for overrides and external components that you can really like create right now. So it's like open turnkey for the developers more and more, to trying to fit in the like level of freedom you have with MDriven Designer, but in the same time not really care about like all these things of versions of Angular, like how it actually works, and just provide that simple, like in this case with the components like template HTML, because HTML is like one of the simplest things you can do in the web. And like if you are working with external components, for it's much complex, but just also I can make the small like sneak peek that we have more. I see that I'm running out of time, that next to the view data that actually represents some data about the view. Right now we also have view meta. If you need it, you can access it through the outside, even with external component, and you see the information about the controls, which controls are on the page, and also you can see the global settings in the thing. For example, here you can see that our other functionality, it's like timeout that we are introduced to help our servers to maintain the consumption of the resources of your server hardwares, and close the session if you left your, for example, browser tab open to navigate you to the static page, and erase echo space in the member of the server.
Dennis,
So
did
you can
you
see.
get the link that I sent in the chat? Could you click that one for?
Yes. Okay, I need
So-
to copy it because I'm in different. Oops. Sorry. Yes, it's like.
So this is what we did from before. There's already a way to access pretty much all the metadata that's safe to share from the turnkey app, and the reason behind this was to allow for any type of implementation, a separate new client that anyone could build, just interpreting what's on the view model and what type it should render as, and all the tag values, etc. So this is pretty much what you need, Dennis. I'm not saying that this is the way that you're gonna go, but this is how we did it before, and what we used it for was to do a VPF implementation of the turnkey client. So it wasn't actually a web thing, it was a fat client that didn't have any data stored locally, just use the turnkey server as the web service, and that sort of went out of fashion, and we didn't continue that. But this API is of course still valid if you would to do a client in JavaScript or in Blazor or any other type of language on your own. So I'm not saying that this is the way we're going to go, but this is at least the full
I think this is the one that you've used, Dennis, right?
Yeah, it's one of the some of. I think it's not only this one. We have the different one from different purposes, and I using one of these thing, like if you go here, like to construct and make available the tag values for the view inside AngularJS scope, you can actually see that I requesting like.
It was a view meta.
Yeah, I missed. Yeah, here. So requesting the information about like and receiving the XML that probably Hans like we just saw that I used to construct these objects in the JavaScript world for the browser, make it accessible for like your overrides external components and for our, of course, own needs inside implementation of Turkey.
So maybe we could extend that API to be able to send in specific grids, like this table. I want the meta of this table, and then you would get a smaller subset of this just to the point for a specific grid, and then JavaScript could sort of build the grid from there. But I agree, it's a pretty hefty task to do all this from. It was a lot of work doing it in C#, and it will be the same amount of work of doing it from JavaScript, of course.
Much faster, I would say, and because it's like also trying to use the technology that they are supposed to be used. I mean, for rendering something in the browser, JavaScript and HTML with CSS is the best choice. Trying to construct something in the browser with the C# much tougher thing to do, and it's much easier to maintain. But of course, like just we need to all keep in mind that all this structure also aiming to make the code ready to spend less time when we will decide to migrate to the new version of Angular, because we probably use the same concepts and app structure that are needed in the new implementation. And it will also allow us to make it like almost painless, I believe, in the future to migrate. And it's like painless for everyone, like developers, us.
Yeah,
We're out of time, but just one final thing, Dennis and everyone else. My hope has also been that we could like backport this new templating mechanism into MVC so that we could actually render maybe server side by using the same templates and basically the same thinking at least, because we have this beautiful new way of doing it, but we're not using it in our static page rendering. And so that's one thing to think about for the future.
Yes, yeah, it's true. And one thing that also we're planning to do, I think, somehow switch like navbar also to the Angular, because right now, if you didn't know it, like the navbar, it's always static and used like constructed by just this MVC page, like just a part of MVC here. And also to make it maybe customizable, it would be great to make it also in Angular. Yeah. I'm out of time right now. I didn't think that it will take so much time. I hope that no one were so really bored.
Yeah, so I think this was a really great presentation from you, Dennis, and thanks a lot, and we will have the video, and thanks to everyone that took the time to join us. Hope to see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
all of you.
much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks for the presentation.
Bye-bye. Thank you.